Sunday. The city on a Sunday morning is as close as New York gets to a whisper. Not silence. We've established that silence doesn't exist here, that the city's noise is a permanent condition like gravity or weather. But a reduction, a choosing of lower registers. The cabs that on Monday are urgent are on Sunday unhurried. The people on the sidewalk below have the quality of people who have agreed collectively to operate at 70% of capacity today. And 70% of New York is still more than 100% of most places. But the reduction is real, and I love it. I can hear the radiator clearly. The radiator, as I've mentioned, is not a musical instrument. But on a Sunday, when the rest of the noise is down, I can hear the specific rhythm of it. It bangs and hisses in a pattern that has, over the year and a half I've been here, become as familiar as a voice. I know which bang means it's warming up, and which means it's decided it's warm enough, and which means something in the pipe that the super says is fine, but that I remain skeptical about. I've been sitting in this chair since 8. It's 11:30 now. In those 3.5 hours, I have done the following. Made coffee twice, watched the street below, looked at the geranium approximately 40 times, read the first 4 pages of a novel I've been trying to get into for 2 weeks, put the novel down, picked it up again, put it down again, thought about Tuesday's callback, thought about Danny, thought about my father in his good coat, thought about the man on 6th Avenue and his wife in the second row, thought about Elise with the brush. Did not do anything. This is Sunday. Sunday is the day you are allowed to let the week settle, to look at what happened and what it cost and what it gave, and not yet be organizing it into the next week, not yet making it useful, just letting it be what it was. I want to tell you something true, something I don't say on Mondays when I'm putting the week's face on, something I don't say on Tuesdays when I'm being wry about the corset and the seam situation. Something I hold for Sundays, for the quiet, for the 3.5 hours in the chair when there's nowhere to be, and the city is in its whisper register, and the radiator has its say. It's hard. I know you know this. You've been watching this week with me, and you understand what the work requires and what the industry offers in return. And you've seen the audition room and the waiting room and Friday night and the newsstand. So this is not news. But I want to say it plainly, without the irony and without the forward momentum, just as its own statement. It is hard. Not in the way that things that are wrong are hard. I've been careful this week to distinguish between hard and wrong, because I don't believe the life I've built is wrong. I believe it's right for me, in the specific way that some things are right. Not comfortable, not certain, not guaranteed any particular outcome, but right in the deeper sense of being the thing you're supposed to be doing. Hard in the way that things that matter are hard. The mornings when the percentage is low. The auditions with the man who's thinking about lunch. The trades that Jack reads every Tuesday. The gap between the photograph on the magazine cover and the woman at the newsstand. The names on the list. The closed door in my father. It's real. It costs. And here is what I've learned about cost, which is maybe the thing I'd carry out of this year if I could carry only one thing. The cost is the proof. The fact that it costs is the proof that it's real, that you're inside something true rather than performing something safe, that the life is actually happening rather than being managed from a careful distance. If it didn't cost, if the audition didn't make me nervous and the thank you didn't carry that fraction of weight, and the Friday night without the call didn't sit with me, if none of it cost, what would that mean? It would mean I wasn't really in it, that I was watching from outside the rope. I'm inside the rope. That costs. That's right. Mrs. Petrova knocked on my door this morning. This has happened in our 18 months of nodding in the hallway 3 times. Each time there was a specific reason. Once to ask if I'd heard something in the building, once to borrow the large pot she somehow knew I owned, once to say that the super needed access to my window for the fire escape inspection, and she wanted to warn me. Today she was holding a small plant. Not the geranium. The geranium is on the fire escape where it belongs. A different plant. Small, in a terracotta pot, with pale green leaves that I didn't recognize. She held it out to me in the way you hold something out to someone when you've made a decision about giving it. I said, "Mrs. Petrova." She said, "For your windowsill." I said, "You don't have to." She said, "It does well with low light." And she said it in a way that settled the matter. I took the plant. She nodded. She went back to her apartment. The door closed. I stood in my doorway holding the plant for a moment. Then I put it on the windowsill, in the corner where the morning light hits, which is maybe not precisely what she meant by low light, but is what I have to offer. It looks right there. It looks, in fact, like it was always supposed to be there, which is the feeling you get when something finds its correct place. I'm going to water it consistently and tell no one that I have become a person with a plant. Actually, I want to tell you about last night. Last night I went to the movies. I go to the movies the way some people go to church, not out of obligation, not with the specific reverence of someone performing a duty, but with the genuine desire for the thing itself. The thing being, the dark, the screen. The 2 hours when the world outside stops and the world inside the frame becomes the only world. In 1947, going to the movies it's still the event. It hasn't become the background yet. It's not something you put on while you do something else. It is, specifically, the thing you go and do. The theater I go to most is on 50th Street. It has 800 seats. 800. I want you to think about 800 people agreeing to be inside the same story at the same time, to let the same light move through the same dark, to laugh at the same moment and go quiet at the same moment, and feel whatever the thing is you feel when a film is doing what it's supposed to do. When the story gets underneath your practical mind and into the part that knows things before you can explain them. 800 people, all together. I find this, and I've been going to theaters for 20 years, and I still find this. I find it one of the most purely human things that exists. Last night, the picture was Out of the Past. Robert Mitchum, Jane Greer, Jacques Tourneur directing, which means the shadows are doing as much work as the actors, which is the right ratio when everyone involved is this good. It's a noir, and I want to talk about noir for a moment, because noir is the visual language of 1947 in a way that I think is worth explaining. Noir is not just dark photography and women in trouble and men who make bad decisions. Noir it's a way of looking at the world that says, the light and the dark are both real. The moral clarity is never as clean as it appears, and the people who are most interesting are the ones who know this and are trying to figure out what to do with it anyway. That's 1947. That's what it feels like from the inside. Standing here, in the aftermath of everything, in the before of everything else, the world has stopped being simple, if it ever was, and the art that tells the truth about that is the art that sits with the complexity rather than resolving it too quickly. Noir sits with it. Noir looks at the gap between what people want and what they do and what it costs them. And it doesn't flinch, and it doesn't lie. And it is, in its way, the most honest genre working right now. I love it. Last night, watching Mitchum in the dark. That face, that voice, the specific quality of a man who carries something and knows it and has stopped pretending otherwise. I sat in seat F12, 800 people around me, and I thought, this is what the work is for. This specific transaction. The man on the screen in the light, and the 800 of us in the dark, and the story moving between us like current. That's what I'm after when I go into the audition room. That current. Now. The other things I love about going to the movies in 1947, because you deserve the full picture. Before the film, there is a newsreel. A newsreel is, if you don't know what a newsreel is, you live in a world where this information comes to you differently, and I understand that. And what I want to tell you is that in 1947, before the film, you see the news. Real footage. Moving pictures of what happened in the world this week, narrated by a man with a specific voice. The newsreel voice, which I can only describe as the sound of authorized certainty. The voice that says, "This happened. This is what it looked like. Here is what you should know." Last night's newsreel. A diplomatic meeting in London that nobody fully explained. Some footage of New York Harbor that was very beautiful. And a story about a new automobile that was less interesting than the automobile thought it was. Then, a cartoon. Yes, before the main feature, a cartoon. Last night was a Warner Brothers cartoon. I won't describe it because describing cartoons is like describing jokes. It removes the thing. But I will tell you that 800 adults laughed at it. Full, genuine, completely uncomplicated laughing. The kind of laughing that children do, and that adults occasionally remember how to do when the circumstances are right. The circumstances last night were right. Then, a short film. About 5 minutes, a travel short, somewhere in the American West, mountains and rivers, narrated by the same authorized certainty voice from the newsreel, but softer, more aspirational. Then, finally, out of the past. So what you get when you go to the movies in 1947 is not a film. It is a program. It is a curated evening of moving pictures that begins with the world as it is, passes through the world as it's funny, visits the world as it could be, and arrives, finally, at the world as it might be, if you follow a man named Jeff Bailey into the complications of his past. I find this exhausting in the best possible way. You come out of an 800-seat theater in 1947 having been given more than you went in for, which is the correct direction of exchange. And then you walk home through the November night, and the city is doing its late-night version of itself. The specific sounds of after 10, the last people out, and the first trucks starting their night deliveries. And you carry the film with you, not yet having processed it, the way you carry something just eaten that is still becoming part of you. That's the walk home from the movies in 1947. I recommend it.